and welcome to the Biz Coach Show, hosted by My Biz Coaches and presented by the TLG Group, where we provide entrepreneurs with the edge they need to succeed. As always, your hosts today are David Macon, that's me, and Eric. Eric, how are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent, David. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us today. And we're actually continuing a little bit of our topic from episode 2. So if you missed it, you may want to go back and check that out before listening to today's episode, or you can just plunge ahead with us as we talk about these big tech layoffs. So we're recording in December of 2022, and it's all over the news. You've got Meta, Facebook, Twitter. There's all of these big tech layoffs. And so today we're talking about that, but then also when these layoffs happen, whether it's tech or any other industry, how can you as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, how can you capitalize on that kind of change in the labor market? And so when layoffs happen, Eric, what's kind of some of the things that you advise your clients on, or maybe some of the things that you think about when you see these headlines about these mass layoffs?
Yeah, so there was, to your point, the last episode we talked about kind of, where some of this probably stemmed from and how these came about. And as, you kind of think through, okay, these are the scenarios that are playing out. There's some massive layoffs. There's some key people that are probably being let go. But we also have to recognize that with every large layoff, there's a certain percentage of people that were good employees, and there's probably a certain percentage of people that weren't so good employees. And consequently, as much as this could be a great opportunity to capitalize on new potential talent to bring into your team, there's also the consideration of, for at the end of the day, somebody was let go. There was probably a reason why they were let go. So sifting through that and quantifying, exactly whether or not this is somebody who's a good fit for your team, a good fit for your organization, and even more importantly, are the skill sets the right match for what you need within your organization? All of those are big factors that you probably want to make sure that and understand before you go and try and recruit some better talent. But absolutely, a time like this is a huge opportunity to upgrade your talent level for sure. If you have the right systems in place to quantify and ensure that you're getting the right kind of people that you're looking for.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you were saying that, Eric, I was thinking about, panning for gold, right? You got to get a whole bunch of stuff and you shake it back and forth and you might get this, tiny little nugget after all that work. But that's what you have to do. So, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's an opportunity, but it's an opportunity that carries with it potentially a little bit of risk if you make a bad hire, right? So you can't think of this as every single person affected is a top tier A player that you're going to bring in. So don't let your guard down and follow your process and really vet people. So love that. And I think one of the things that I know you and I talk about a little bit, Eric, is when things like this happen, that person, right, the human side of this is they're scared, right? I think if you haven't been there yourself, you probably know somebody who has, where okay, I thought I had a paycheck coming and now I don't. And so I'm going to just try to grab something, snatch up a job before, the Christmas season hits and the time we're recording this, right? So if it looks good, I'm going to go in, I'm going to do it. And maybe that buys me time to look for something else. And so one of the things that I caution people on is make sure you're finding people that view your job, that opportunity, as a landing pad versus a stepping stone. And so is this somebody that's going to stay with you, grow with you? Or are they going to come in for a couple months, be a distraction? You're going to put a lot of time and effort into them, and ultimately they're going to leave for something in another industry or something that's a better suit to their career aspirations. So I think we need to be cognizant of that, as well as, yeah, it's great if you can lock that person down. Sure, it's a great opportunity, but if you don't retain that person and they don't positively impact your business and you don't get the benefit of that ROI, ultimately that's a waste of time and effort. So just again, going back to your point, you got to find the right person, not only from a skill set perspective, but that's going to fit within your organization where it is today and in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that analogy. The what is the launching pad versus landing?
The landing pad and the stepping stone.
Yeah, the landing pad and stepping zone. Yeah, exactly. Because the stepping stone, nobody wants to be the stepping stone, right?
Right.
I think, and then one piece I would add to that, and having had many years of experience in the retail world, a lot of people came into our world specifically in our combined experience in working in the wireless retail world, a lot of people came into our world thinking, oh, this is just, some job until I get something better. And a lot of people didn't realize that the real potential within the organization it was a real potential career opportunity if you chose to look at it that way, right? And it wasn't just a general retail job. We had all kinds of opportunities to kind of grow and expand, move up the food chain, so to speak, become assistant manager, store manager, and eventually a director. And the kind of compensation that we were paying for those levels of development, right? It was absolutely a career path. I mean, I spent almost 25 years in that industry. I know you were about 15 or something to that effect. So, um, not just showing the disparity in age in any way, but
Right.
the point being is that even though the majority of the people that we were hiring in these entry level retail sales roles um, may have perceived us as, to your point, a stepping stone to the next career opportunity. The reality was a lot of those people realized, hey, I kind of like this, or I'm good at this, or both, and I can see myself fitting in, particularly in our world where we were very focused on our culture and how our culture was actually our culture really helped us dramatically in recruiting top quality talent. And between an aggressive compensation structure and a real legitimate growth or what we call it career path, right? Development. We could actually show people how they could progress along and create a name for themselves and cut out a path, right? A career path for themselves. So I think that's an important component because if you are hiring at entry level people, I think one of the things you have to factor in is what's the path for these individuals? Because what's the old analogy? A type A or sorry, yeah, an A player, meaning a top quality talent, is not going to be attracted to a B or C opportunity, right? They're also not going to be excited about working for a B or C leader.
That's right. Yeah.
So a really important components there as well, because you factor in the idea that you got somebody coming in from some larger organization with some really great skills, and they sit down and they meet with the owner of this smaller company, and they could be really intrigued and be like, "Wow, I see so much potential. I could certainly help them do this or this or this," but I'm not sure that I'm going to learn a whole lot from who's going to be my supervisor, whoever that would be, right? And that would be a deterrent for a top quality talent. They might very well turn away from an opportunity like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Go ahead. I would say, you're absolutely right, and just think about just the workplace, the atmosphere, the environment, the cultural difference between a Fortune 500, Fortune 100 company to your company of 10 or 15 people, and that's a pretty big shift. And I think a big piece of what comes along with that is in a large company you can hide, right? You can kind of hide in
Yes.
maybe your silo or the work group that you're in. But when you're in a small company, man, you got to produce or you're going to get ejected from that organization either by your own choice or somebody's going to help you with the process. So I think that's something to keep in mind too is when those people come in your organization, it's going to feel different most likely than what they're used to. And they're going to be looking to you for that guidance, for that development, for that growth. And if they're not getting it, they're not going to last. So just a thought to follow up on what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I think that just kind of bring that full circle, tons of opportunity to bring in top quality talent. We just need to make sure that there's a place for them to land, so to speak, within my organization so that they have the opportunity to contribute. They have the opportunity to see where they can go. You could bring in a top quality talent who says, hey, this company is much smaller than I'm accustomed to working for, but I can see how I could really fit in and bring some real value to this company as long as the owner or the direct supervisor of that individual is willing to allow them, give them some autonomy, right? Obviously, you're not going to get it right out of the gate, but they could see how they could be contributing and in a meaningful way. There's a huge opportunity to really kind of take that company that smaller company to a whole nother level with one or two key people like that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's like that. I think the one thing that most small business owners have a tendency to forget is that top talent will not be attracted to a lesser opportunity or a lesser leader. So if, for instance, we've done this before. We were bringing in top talent from other companies, competitors,
Yeah.
and which store we placed them in was strategic.
Yeah.
For instance,
Absolutely.
for instance, we have a brand new manager who just got promoted, doesn't have a lot of experience in a store manager role. They're going to be in a smaller store with a smaller team. Taking somebody who's a lot of experience in the industry, they still need to be, they still need to learn our culture and understand how to work within our organization. So we need to bring them into a store and kind of give them baby steps to acclimate and get accustomed to our business. But putting him behind the right store manager or with underneath the right store manager and allowing them the opportunity to get the right coaching and development that's appropriate for their skill set, that's a super important component as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting as you said that, Eric. I was thinking about as a leader, right, in that situation. Of course, right, you're saying they're not going to be attracted to a low caliber leader, but I also think you have to consider the team dynamics. If you have this, a player coming in, from a large organization and they come into your small organization, there's going to be some friction within the team. And as a leader, you're going to have to kind of manage through that because you may have people that view that as a threat. You may have people that view that as, hey, this is awesome. I can learn from this person and all sorts of, different ends of that spectrum. But I think as a leader, you need to be prepared to manage through that as well, which you have to do with any, new hire that you bring in. But I think in this particular situation that we're talking about where we know that these people may already kind of have an exit strategy or 1 foot in, 1 foot out, even more important to make sure the team dynamics are effective and they fit into your work group. And some of that may be, preparing your team or having conversations in advance or checking in with the new hire and your existing employees and really managing through that process.
Yeah, it's a great point. Ironically, as we're saying that, I literally had two scenarios that came to my head. One was, and you'll remember it well, when there was a team in one of our markets in Nevada, we'll say,
Yeah.
at a particular location, which was one of the top producing locations in the company for an extended period of time. There was a very specific culture within the culture of
Yep.
that store, right? And it was a very cutthroat, aggressive style of selling. Never in question of integrity necessarily, but just you know you weren't going to, if you didn't have uh, the appropriate skill set to hold your own, you're gonna get thrown out of that store. I mean, not in a derogatory sense. It's just you're not going to be a good fit for that store if you don't have that sense of aggressiveness in your sales style, and because the guys will just run you over, so to speak.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so strategically bringing people into that store was an important conversation.
Yeah.
I fast forward that to a current client that I have today. And one of the conversations we have, they're in a particular industry where there's a certain skill set that they need to know and understand. It's not sales related; it's a marketing company, but they're bringing people in that should have a certain level of experience. But what I've recognized, because the core group of the organization have been working together for quite a few years now, one of the challenges is they bring somebody new in who doesn't quite acclimate right away and like is asking questions like, well, how would I find this or where would I get that? They're super short with them and they don't realize that they're actually creating and making it more difficult for new people to come in and actually feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of my coaching with the owner has been helping him understand that these particular individuals, although they're well intended, they just have this natural inclination because it's kind of like, everybody's using inside jokes and the one person that's not getting is the outsider. Right. And they're kind of like, am I not getting something here? And so they feel outcast and consequently, they've lost one or two decent employees because they just didn't feel accepted.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, and we'll, I'm sure, do several shows on this coming up. But for Gen Z workers in particular, which if you look at tech
Mm,
companies, that's a decent amount of that workforce. That's one of the top five things that they're looking for is that sense of belonging, that sense of connection. And so, if they come into a work group and they don't have it with their leader, they don't have it with their team, they're gone, right? And more than
right.
any other generation that I've worked with or seen, this generation is very likely to just walk. I mean, more than I've ever seen in my life and career. And if they don't feel that connection, if they're not, feeling like they're meshing, if they're that, teamwork, that ability to relate to their leader, they sense that their leader cares for them, and all of that, they'll just leave. You may not even get a 2-week notice, and now you've got a huge hole
Right.
that you have to fill. So definitely something to be aware of.
Yeah, great point. One of the other things, David, as we're kind of leading through this path, I think one of the other things that is relevant based on the topic, capitalizing these mass layoffs, is the idea that, with everything that's going on, not only an opportunity to upgrade the talent, but you could also look at, and we're talking more specifically as a direct hire into my company. You also might be able to find some people that, in this series of mass layoffs, and I don't know that we actually address this as much, but a lot of these people may have gotten bit by the bug to go out and do their own thing.
That's right. Yeah.
So, we talked about that, and I know that's part of the topic we want to touch on today. But as an employer, my suggestion would be, you may come across somebody who maybe doesn't, like, you can't quite pay them exactly what they'd be looking for, but they could do a consulting role. They could come in and play a part-time consulting role, and you can capitalize on their skill sets without trying to fit them into your puzzle the way that, right? Like, they don't quite fit exactly, but they bring a lot of value to the table. And as long as they have the professionalism and the skill set to be able to provide you that insight and knowledge that you're trying to glean from their experience, without having to try and figure out how they fit in your financial plan or how they fit within the team organization, they come in as a consultant, and you may be able to capitalize on that value.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting you bring that up, Eric. In a booklet, sorry, I wrote for ATD. I talked about how to build a training organization, but one of the strategies in there is, it's called buy, build, or borrow talent, and you can research that. It's not my idea, but it's a popular idea, especially in the training space, which is a big part of my world. But I think what you're talking about makes sense, right? If you can't, necessarily build the talent within your organization in a short time, and you can't afford to buy the talent, you can borrow the talent through, freelancing and all those sorts of things. And I've done that myself. I've worked with organizations that, maybe they didn't necessarily need a full-time L&D person, or, hey, I just need some help getting an onboarding program off the ground. And you can find some really great people that you can contract for a short period of time to come in and make a big impact in your organization. And it's a great strategy. So 100%. Yeah, I think it's spot on, and definitely something people should be thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and for the irony of that, before we started the call today, I mentioned to you, I have a client that would benefit from your skill set.
Yes,
Right?
indeed.
Developing, they want to develop content, and that's right up your alley, and they need guidance on how to tie that outline together and put all those things into place. They don't need a full-time L&D, right? Person on board, maybe not yet, but what a great way to introduce your, skill set and make that available to them. So it's a prime example of exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think, something else, Eric, I know you and I have talked about is, you don't have these mass layoffs land in your lap all the time, right? So I
No.
think maybe something we should think about is, if somebody's watching this a year or two down the road and it's a totally different environment than we're in today, what can they do? So one of the things that comes to mind for me, and I know you've got some thoughts on this, is continually building that network, right? Where, maybe I don't have an opening today, maybe I can't afford that person today, but really building that network so that at a future point in time, you may be able to get that great talent, with or without a mass layoff. So any thoughts on the importance of kind of building that network and how you can leverage it as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, and here's the way that I would position this, and what I tried to do over the course of my career, one, you always have to be recruiting. And I think
That's
we
right.
we learned that. I won't necessarily say the hard way, because I don't know that it was a hard lesson, but it was a constant, and a constant reminder that if you're not recruiting all the time, you're gonna run into a situation where you have a need and you can't fulfill the need because, you weren't, and you don't have a pipeline to draw from, right? And so it's really easy to get stuck, especially if you're a small business owner, to get in that conundrum of, I don't really have a need right now, So I'm not recruiting because I don't have somewhere to put them in. And so that's where the networking on a consistent basis, or constantly, keeping that funnel open, or keep filling people into the funnel, because the reality is, at the end of the day, you will have a need eventually.
Yeah.
Right. Unless your business is regressing and you're going the other direction. So the reality is, if you have any intentions of growing and scaling, you're going to have the need. It may not be 2 weeks from now, it might be 2 months or even 2 years from now. But the whole idea is that the better you are about keeping that door open and having those conversations and continuing to add to that funnel that we were talking about, right? Then you can put people in that funnel, and then I'll sift out, right? I mean, I'm actually thinking of an example I can think of personally. Uh, I had talked to somebody 2 years ago. I'm not in a position just yet, but 2 years ago, we were having a conversation. I built the relationship. We had a very specific conversation about their skill sets. I got to see it firsthand through the experience that we shared together. And I was like, wow, I want this person to work for me. I wasn't in the position 2 years ago. Today, I'm probably a few months from that, and it could be in like a Q2 solution. And ironically, they happen to be in a position where they've transitioned from being a full-time employee to a freelancer. And now they're looking for something that would allow them to leverage the freelance skill set, or a role that they have, but taking on a more active role within a growing organization, i.e., what a great fit for us right now, right? So
Right. Yeah.
it may be a few months away, but that's a great opportunity that could come together. And I think I can match their compensation need, and it'll be a great fit. But literally, I've been nurturing that relationship for over 2 years.
Yeah. Well,
So yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and it's interesting too, right? You bring up a good point, because we always think about it, right, from our perspective as the business owner, the entrepreneur. We don't always know what's going on in our network, right? That individual, what's going on in their life. Who knows? At
Yep.
some point, maybe their company goes through a merger or an acquisition, and suddenly, they need something really quick. And now that you've got the relationship, you're the first person that comes to mind. Could also be, we see this a lot right now, is, hey, I can't do remote work anymore, and if your opportunity allows me to do that, awesome. Or, hey, I need to relocate, or I've got a family member that I've got to spend some more time taking care of, and so I know I can't maybe get as much as I used to, but I can still work 30 hours a week instead of 40. And so you may run into these situations as you work with people that their circumstances may not make sense now, but you never know. So that's why keeping that iron in the fire, and checking in every so often and seeing how they're doing, and genuinely, building that relationship. You never know when it's going to turn around, or things may shift for them, and all of a sudden they're available, or you can work something out. So just, yeah, you never know, I guess, is the wisdom there.
Absolutely. And it goes hand in hand with, keeping that funnel, right? Keeping that funnel and reviewing the funnel on a regular basis. Who do I have? What relationships have I maintained? And then constantly adding to that funnel, right? So as you're talking to people, and like, you realize that they're doing something that, is a good, um, parallel to what you do, and where they're at in their career, and they may be young and developing, and you see them as potential. 3 years from now, they're frustrated because they're like, well, this isn't quite working out for me, I don't like this gig anymore. And now they're like, I'll even take a cut in pay to go do something I'm really passionate about. To your point, you never know. So if you don't maintain those lines of communication, which, quite honestly, entrepreneurs struggle with that. So if you do, figure out a solution on a way to do. I mean, you could quite honestly, for all intents and purposes, is not ideal, but if it helped you create drip campaign funnel
Yeah.
for following up with leads. I mean,
Yeah.
through an email drip campaign, and just, or even text messaging for that matter, you can literally automate it and just reach out to people quarterly and say, hey, just checking in with you, see how things are going, and it sparks a conversation.
Absolutely.
Right. But yeah, and it's funny, I talk about that extensively on how to leverage technology and how to be more efficient with communication. And that's in any, but not just from a marketing perspective, but any type of communication.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we provided just a couple of good kind of generic things to think about, some great advice when it comes to these layoffs, and maybe even when there's not a layoff, how you can, grow that pipeline, build that network. But if we've got somebody that's listening to this, Eric, and they want more information about how to, kind of make this unique to their business, or how can they apply this to their business. I know that you've got a great team of coaches over there at My Biz Coaches. So where can they learn more about you guys and what you do and how they can connect with you on this topic or anything else that they may be facing in their business?
Appreciate that, David. And so, as I've been mentioning over the last couple of episodes, we're redeveloping our website, and that should be done soon. But it's My Biz Coaches, as just like it's in my name there. But mybizcoaches.com is the best place to touch base with us. You can schedule an appointment. Somebody will you can go on there in a calendar link and schedule an appointment, and we'll do a initial session. It's usually a 45-minute session. We walk through, we get a better understanding of your business and see how we can best help you.
Awesome. Yeah, go check it out. And if you're looking to learn more about TLG Group and what we do, head over to trainleadgrow.com. You can also connect with us on social media. Just use @trainleadgrow. We're on Instagram and all the big social media sites. And we have a lot more awesome topics we're going to cover on future shows, a lot of great information. So definitely make sure you like, follow, subscribe. We don't want you to miss out on our next episode. We've actually been working on it, and we've got some really good stuff in store. So don't miss it. And we thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll catch you next time on the Biz Coach Show.
Excellent. Great day. Thanks.